Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
It's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leaf Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Rory Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Rory, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actress Cassandra Lee Morris, best known as the original voice of Luna and Leo in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, and Yubel and Alice in YuGiOh GX, Kiazuki in Hanazuki Full of Treasures, Leafa in Sword Art Online, Nami in League of Legends, Morgana in Persona 5, Frankie and Venus in Monster High, Bubbles in Popples, Edea in Bravely Default and Bravely Second, Enna Kros in World of Final Fantasy, Mutsuki in Final Fantasy Type O HD, Shizu in Blame, Celia in Infamous Second Son, Ritsu Tainaka in K-On!, Lin in Xenoblade Chronicles X, Fie Claussell in the Legends of Heroes video games, Natsuki in Psychic School Wars Calaveras and Sailor Moon Ore and Sailor Moon Crystal, and Gemma, Nathaniel and Marble in Pokemon. How are you today, Cassandra?
Phew, I'm good. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. I'm glad I got through that intro in one piece.
I know. That was, even as you were saying them all, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done all that.
Yeah. And I can't believe that I think I got most of them right. I might have slipped up on one or two again, but
I think you got them all.
Phew, yeah. I was relieved. I just felt like I was trying to make it not so obvious. I was just reading my mental notes of how to actually pronounce these names.
No, you did good.
Yeah, thanks very much. So getting right into my questions for you, Cassandra. For some of our listeners that may not be familiar with your background, can you tell us how you got into acting?
Yeah, I actually started acting locally in my town in Connecticut, doing community theater. I did a ton of musicals from age 8 to about 13, and I was also really active in my dance studio, so I was always dancing and doing recitals and things like that. And when I was 13, my parents took me into New York City, and I got a professional agency for representation, and I started doing a lot of commercials and voiceover jobs, and I did a couple like TV movie things. And yeah, that's how I got started.
That's very cool, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were a journalist at one point as well, and as a journalist myself, that interested me when I read that, although it could be wrong.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I actually went to New York University for journalism. So that's what I have my degree in. And after school, I was kind of doing like voiceovers on the side, but then I was also writing for publications in New York City. And I had a blog for a while. And in LA, I did some reporting, like local news stuff. So yeah, I've kind of always dabbled in journalism along with doing acting. But lately, I've just been doing acting, like for the past couple years.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's really cool, though. It's a very interesting mix to have. There's not a lot of people that work in acting and are journalists at the same time, even though, of course, you focus more on acting, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I was growing up and doing acting, I always thought of it more as a hobby and not necessarily as a career path. So that's why I went to school for journalism, because, you know, I wanted to be a magazine editor, And I honestly never thought that I could make a full-time living as an actor because it is really challenging, and I kind of knew that from a young age. But I don't know, it just kind of worked out where I started getting more acting jobs than journalism jobs. So that's kind of where my career led me.
More acting jobs than journalism jobs? That's really interesting.
I know, it seems like it should be the opposite. But yeah, I don't know, that's just kind of how things happened, so I went with it.
Yeah, it's definitely really interesting. Can you tell us how you were originally cast in YuGiOh GX? I believe Yu-Gi-Oh was one of your first voiceover roles.
Well, it was my first anime role, but I had actually been doing voiceovers for about 10 years before that. But mostly doing commercials and audiobooks, radio spots, things like that. Because there's like a big market for that in New York City. So I'd been doing VO for about 10 years, and you know, as I grew up and got older, and I didn't have my mom with me all the time, I started branching out and meeting other like fellow voice actors. And one of them, his name was Oliver Wyman. We were doing a job together, and he mentioned that he was working on a show called Magical Do-Re-Mi, which was an anime that 4Kids Productions was producing. And he was like, "You have a perfect voice for this. I should introduce you to the director." And I said, "Okay, that would be awesome," because, you know, as an actor, you're always looking for your next gig. So I went in to watch Ollie dub Magical Do-Re-Mi, and I met the director, and then the next thing I knew, he called me in to do a role on Magical Do-Re-Mi. And I had one episode, and it never aired, unfortunately, so I've never seen it. But through the director, I met other directors at 4Kids, and I met the casting director for all the shows, and they called me in to audition for YuGiOh GX. And actually, I had a role before I had Yubel. I was Alice the Wandering Doll. I think she had 1 or 2 episodes, so I got cast as her. And then they were having auditions for Yubel, and I auditioned for her, and I got the role. So I guess Yubel was my first like lead character, but I had done 2 other anime roles prior to that, and then a whole bunch of like commercials and audiobooks before that.
It's really interesting, and I actually did mention Alice in the intro, so even 1 episode characters get a mention. Or 2.
Okay, cool. Yeah. They say there are no small parts, just small actors.
Exactly. I don't even agree with the small actors thing, just for the record, but I definitely agree that there's no small parts, that's for sure.
I don't know, I'm pretty small myself. I'm 5 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not get into technicalities, Cassandra. I mean, I'm like 5'10" or 5'11", but
wow.
that's neither here nor there.
But nobody can tell because this is a podcast. That's the beauty of VO. Like, you never really know what the person looks like. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Yubel's pretty tall, so.
Well, yeah. At the end, she is. She starts out as a creepy eye.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up. But it's really interesting that YuGiOh wasn't your first anime gig, because on Wikipedia, it's like there's a bit on the Wikipedia profile on you that says YuGiOh was your first voiceover role.
You know,
now we can prove Wikipedia wrong. The proof is right here.
Yeah, I have such an issue with Wikipedia because I don't know who updates it, and I feel like they just make up things sometimes, because I've gone on there and tried to correct things, and then it never sticks. So, I don't know. I don't think Wikipedia is completely reliable. It's a little bit frustrating, especially, like, because they're writing about me, and I'm like, no, that's wrong. So, yeah. Usually, I would trust IMDb. IMDb is pretty reliable.
Yeah. IMDb did mention a few others before that one, so before you did YuGiOh, I mean, so don't trust Wikipedia, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
down with Wikipedia.
Absolutely.
If there are any Wikipedia editors listening, contact me, because I need you to edit my page correctly.
Yeah, that's just what I was going to say. Like, I mean, now that we've got this, we have it said on record that
Yeah.
that Yu-Gi-Oh wasn't your first voiceover role, not even
Yeah.
your first anime role, really.
No. See, people just make it up. I'm like, you can't do that, man. I'm a real person. You just make up my history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Luna, Leo, and Yubel are all fan favorite characters across fans of 5Ds and GX respectively. Was it challenging to come up with their voices?
Definitely. Especially when Yubel started growing. I think, like, I didn't know where the character was going. So I feel like Yubel kind of morphed in the end into like somebody who's a little bit more powerful but also a little more emotional. And then Leo and Luna, that was my first role where I was playing two characters that were talking directly to each other in every scene. So it was a challenge to make them sound different enough. And it was a challenge that I was super excited to have it because I felt like, I can really do this. Like, I'm not just using my voice all the time. Like, I'm doing character voices. And 4Kids trusted me enough to do two characters who were related and talk to each other the entire time. So, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. That was, I felt like really accomplished after that all ended. So.
That's really cool. And with Luna and Leo, did you have to would you record lines for, say, Luna first and then record lines for Leo later, or did you actually record their conversations to each other?
We never did the conversations, but we would do, in each session, we would do all of Luna's lines first. And then we would go back and do Leo's lines because Leo was a little more vocally strenuous. So, yeah, we did Luna first because she's a little bit easier on the voice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, I mean, you don't want to tire your voice out doing the more difficult character to voice and then, do the easier one and find that you can't really do it,
Exactly.
Because of the challenge on the vocal cords. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Were you given a lot of freedom coming up with those three characters' voices? Were you given instructions by the crew on how they should be voiced?
It was so long ago now that I don't remember if we did a lot of playing around. I mean, I had a director and an engineer in every session with me, and the director's job is to really guide the entire vision of the show. So I'm pretty sure I worked with the director on it, but I don't remember them being overly picky. I think they cast me because of what I had done in the audition, and they really liked the audition.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you were given a bit of freedom then in that regard, that they weren't overly picky.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Now, after the first season of 5Ds, you moved to Los Angeles, where you currently reside, and the roles of Luna and Leo were taken over by Eileen Stevens, who coincidentally also took over the role of Yubel for the Bonds Beyond Time movie. So coincidental, the same person took over all three of your characters. If that was me, I wouldn't feel too good about that. Just kidding. Was your decision to move to LA purely to pursue different voiceover opportunities?
So what had happened with 5Ds was it was being produced during like the beginning of the huge recession that we had here in the US, and everything was very uncertain. So like I would go into work to record, and a lot of people were being let go and they weren't renewing any of their shows. So it got to the point where Yu-Gi-Oh was the only show that they were still recording, and kind of like nobody really knew what was going to happen. So at the end of December, they had told me that the episode that I just recorded was the last episode that they were going to do of 5Ds, and there was going to be no more Yu-Gi-Oh. So I kind of saw that as, instead of being like, oh man, I'm out of a job, I was like, I've always wanted to live in Los Angeles, and it's kind of the only other place I could live and still pursue acting in the same way that I'd been pursuing it in New York. So I packed up my car and I drove to LA. And yeah, and I guess I never really looked back. I'd only planned on staying for a couple of months, but I don't know. It's really easy to stay in LA. The weather's really nice, and I had started, making a lot of connections and getting a lot of work here, so I decided to stay. And then, of course, after I decided to stay, 4Kids called and said, hey, we're actually starting up YuGiOh again. Do you think you could come in and record? And I was like, I moved across the country, and I guess they didn't have the budget at the time to record me remotely, so they just recast me instead.
That's really interesting. I didn't actually know all about that backstory beforehand. I mean, I had guessed you might have moved to pursue different opportunities, and of course you've had a great many of them, and congratulations on that.
Oh, thanks.
So that's really interesting to hear that the recession had a bit of an impact as well, in terms of YuGiOh getting delayed. I mean, I actually didn't know that YuGiOh 5D's recording was delayed because of the recession. That's actually news to me, so it's really interesting.
Well, I'm sure there was a lot of other corporate things going on that I wasn't aware of because, as an actor, you're not really privy to all of the corporate conversations and decisions and things like that. But that's kind of, you could see it happening. It was not a fun time to be anywhere in the U.S. during that time because everything was so uncertain. But yeah, I don't know. It was kind of sad because, all the shows that had been going, they would have 5 shows recording at a time, and then they had 4, then 3, then 2, and then 1, and then 0. So, yeah.
And left with just the most popular one, YuGiOh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, recessions definitely aren't fun. I mean, we had one here in Ireland 10 years ago, and there was so much uncertainty for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
6. I'm counting off the top of my head at this point.
Yeah, funny side note, I actually just found out that you guys had that because I went to a photography exhibit, and it's this documentary photographer that I love named Lauren Greenfield, and she had documented the recession in Ireland as well. And I had no idea that even happened. But it was very similar to what happened here, where banks just let people borrow way too much money, and then you had all these houses that were just empty, and these housing developments that were half finished, and yeah, it was crazy. It was kind of a similar thing happened here. So
yeah, definitely. But that really is an interesting story you told us about how you ended up being recast for 5D, so thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, no worries.
And what would you say, aside from, voicing Luna and Leo back-to-back in sessions really, but not in conversation obviously, what would you say were the biggest challenges you faced while working on YuGiOh?
I think that was the biggest one, just making Leo and Luna's voice very different. Other than that, it was a great show to work on. Everybody from the engineers to the director to, the staff and the other actors that I saw, everyone was just always pleasant, always really fun to work with. I don't know, I loved going in to record for YuGiOh. Those were some good memories. So.
Definitely. And were there any particular actors you remembered seeing?
There's Eric Stewart, he was kind of a fixture in the 4Kids scene at the time. And yeah, I guess that's the big one.
Yeah, Eric Stewart is definitely a very popular name among anime and YuGiOh fans, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And what would you say are your favorite memories from your time working on YuGiOh?
Really, working on YuGiOh was kind of how I learned how to dub, and it was also my gateway into anime. So, yeah. It's fun. Now there's classes that will teach you how to dub, and or YouTube tutorials and things like that. But, back in the day, we didn't really have that, especially in New York. So, just the fact that they took a chance on me and, basically taught me how to dub in a session, that was pretty cool. And I'm forever thankful for that, actually.
Back in the day, you just had to learn on the spot.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was. Because it wasn't as, I feel like now with, voice actors being more in front of the public with convention appearances and with social media and things like that, it's become more of a thing. Like being a voice actor used to be anonymous because, like we were saying earlier, you never really know who's talking because you can't see the person. But now that we're out there and a little bit more mainstream, I feel like it's kind of exploded into this thing where people are like, I want to be a voice actor when I grow up, Whereas like I was just like, I want to be an actor. Like I don't care what kind of acting, like I just want to act. So yeah, I don't know. The industry has really changed in the past 10 years.
Definitely, and in a really good way too. I mean, it's so great as well because, I'm a big fan of shows like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokémon, but one thing I really don't like is how in the end credits it will only mention who voiced in the episodes, but not who they voiced, like the characters. So what I really like is how now in the industry a lot of people are actually coming out and saying, I voiced this person. And a lot more people are doing that now. Like, to this day, like, unlike the original YuGiOh GX 5Ds, there's still so many characters that people don't know who voiced them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That is funny.
So that's one way the industry has changed. So it kind of lines up with what you're saying. I mean, it is becoming more mainstream. More people want to do voiceover, and that's a really good thing, of course.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Now we got more competition.
Okay. It's good for me because I get to find new people to interview. It's bad for you because you get competition. It's just a win-lose scenario.
No. I'm just kidding.
I know. I was just messing.
You know what is cool though is when I first got cast on Yu-Gi-Oh, I never imagined anybody would care. You know what I mean? Because I cared. I was super excited because I'd always wanted to be in a cartoon, and I just never thought that it would lead to me like being interviewed for podcasts and making convention appearances and things like that. So that was like, a nice surprise. I'm like, you guys, I don't know. It blows my mind sometimes. I try not to think about it too hard because I don't know. It's just like a funny thing.
Yeah, I'll just keep having to remind you that there's a person just sitting in a room in Ireland who's talking to you over Skype.
Yeah.
I just have to keep reminding you about that, and you just won't get used to it at all.
You're like, this is actually your real life right now, I swear.
Yeah. Now, you've done so much work in your career, especially since Yu-Gi-Oh! And you've been in so many animes, video games, and animated films as well. Which would you say has been your favourite role, or if you can't pick just one, roles that you have voiced in your career so far?
It is really hard to pick just one because I really feel attached to all of my characters. I feel like I gave them a voice. So, yeah, I can't pick just one, but I'm really excited about my new show, Hanazuki, where I play Kiazuki. It is on Hasbro's YouTube channel right now, and it's so cool. Like, the animation, the colors, the scripts, like, it's hilarious. I love my character. She wears, like, a little black, like, bandana over her eyes. I'm obsessed with it. So, that one is definitely my current favorite. Anime-wise, I would say Leafa from Sword Art Online, and Taiga from Toradora. And also, just the entire movie, Your Name. Your Name was amazing. It's the most amazing anime film I've ever seen in my life. So I'm so thankful to have been a part of that.
Those are some really excellent choices, and I'm sure your fans will agree.
Ah, thanks.
Which would you say has been the most challenging role of all that you have done in your career so far?
Challenging. I would probably say Kyubey from Madoka Magica, because he is so controversial and he's very polarizing. So the most challenging thing for me was actually appearing at conventions and like defending Kyubey to people, because people had such like a sharp, like visceral reaction to him at first, and they just hated him. And I kind of had to go out and explain, how he doesn't have emotions and things like that. So you shouldn't hate him. He's just, he's different from us. So he doesn't think that he's doing anything wrong. But obviously from the audience standpoint, he's like ruining people's lives. So that was challenging, just, being Kyubey.
That's a really interesting way to look at a character as being challenging, like very different from anything any other person I've interviewed has said, which has been the audience reaction. It's so great that audiences are so passionate about this show, like in the sense that they really don't like that character, and they pretty much tell you as such, and you have to defend him.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple times where people would like look at me and point and yell evil. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good. It's not me. I'm an actor. I'm playing a role, first of all. And second of all, he's not totally evil, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, he's challenged.
Yeah, we'll go with challenged.
Yeah. Just as well, you voice, cartoon characters and anime characters and all, because if it was someone from a show like The Walking Dead, where fans were a bit too crazy, they would be shouting a lot worse than evil at an actor.
Oh yeah, that show's insane. I had to stop watching it because I got too attached to some of the characters, and then they would die, and I would be really upset, and I was just like, I need to take a step back. I'm getting like way too involved with The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I'm glad you at least got my reference and weren't just totally confused.
Oh no, I completely understand.
Yeah. Now, my final question for you, Cassandra, do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects that you would like to talk about?
We are recording... Oh, I don't even know if I can say it. Whatever. I'm just going to say watch Hanazuki. It's my favorite show of all time at this moment in time. It's so great. I'm obsessed with Hanazuki. And, the Sword Art Online movie came out. Even Leafa doesn't have a huge part in it, but it is a very good movie. And if you haven't seen Your Name, definitely see Your Name. Like I said before, it's just like such a beautiful movie. And like the more you watch it, the more symbolism you see in it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll be sure to keep an eye out for those. That's all of my questions for you, Cassandra. But before I let you go, a couple of our listeners left questions for you as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, cool.
So, first of all, Kelly Bone would like to know, what was it like to work on the anime movies Psychic School Wars and Your Name? You've already said the latter is a favorite of yours.
Yeah, I mean, Your Name is just so amazing. Psychic School Wars was fun. I liked how it was like a commentary on, modern technology and how it affects people's lives. And they were actually done by the same production team, NYAV Post. And that's Michael Sinner-Nicholas and Stephanie Shea. And they are so great to work with. They're like true professionals and very, very passionate about their work. They like go above and beyond to make everything that they produce like the best that it can be. Like they are so hardworking. Like they work harder than 99% of the people in the industry, I would say. And I think it really shows in their work. So it's just great to work with passionate people like that.
Definitely. And Michael Tran left a couple of questions for you. First of all, he would like to know, have you ever played with Yu-Gi-Oh cards before?
I have not. I've watched other people play, but I haven't actually taken the time to learn how to play myself. Unfortunately. But I do like the cards. I love the Ancient Fairy Dragon card. That's my favorite one that people bring me to sign.
Yeah, that is a really good card. I really like that one too, and it's so great that Ethan has a voice in the show, because not a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Creatures, actually get to talk, but Ancient Fairy Dragon does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does Regulus, now that I think about it, so Luna knows at least two that talk to her. Yeah, but yeah, maybe one day you'll have to. Maybe one day they'll release a Leo or a Luna deck.
I know, that'd be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll do it.
Yeah, or even a Yubel deck. And Yubel's deck had Yubel in it, so that would be even more interesting.
That'd be pretty sweet.
And just for the record, next time you do see someone playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you should definitely just crash whoever's playing, and basically tell them that you voiced Luna, Leo, and Yubel, and see if they believe you. I bet they won't.
Oh my god. I was in Target one day checking out, and the kid in front of me, I say kid loosely, he was probably like, I don't know, a teenager. He was buying Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I wanted to like lean over and be like, good choice, man. But I didn't.
Yeah, that might have been a bit creepy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Then again, so is someone pretending, well, in your case, not pretending, but they don't know that you voice fictional characters. Like I said, in your case, not pretending, but they don't know that.
Yeah.
And Michael's second question is, have you ever worked with Eileen Stevens, the person who, as I mentioned earlier, replaced all three of your characters before?
Yeah, I actually know Eileen, and she's great. She directed me for an audiobook once when I still lived in New York. And she's a really nice woman. I really like her. So, what's cool? Like, even though acting is really competitive, it is always nice to see good people work. So, I mean, obviously I couldn't do those roles anymore because I had moved across the country, but I was happy that they went to Eileen because she's such a good person. And she's really nice, and we've always had just like a good relationship. So, yeah. There's absolutely no hard feelings.
That's very cool. Well, I mean, that's also a really good thing, because, I mean, it is a competitive industry, but it's good that the roles went to someone that you like anyway, so
yeah,
it's a good thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very cool. So that's all of my questions for you today, Cassandra. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Cool, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
You're very welcome, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know.
I will, for sure. Thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to doing it again sometime. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Time to wrap up today's show. Make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/egp, check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast, check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/officialeverythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/separatist destroyers. Check out Cassandra Lee Morris's website, www.cassandraleemorris.com, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from. www.channel1138.com. Geek set, everyone.
You know, since the time I did a production of Oliver when I was 8 years old, you know, to be one of those little pickpockets running around, I just loved theater, and I was always a huge, you know, growing up, I was a huge...
I think a lot of these, you know, a lot of these things are probably pretty mundane, but I guess if if one day a new actor is on the show and you're like, who is that actor? Why is he playing Crow? Yeah, I mean, the short